This is our last and final episode of How the Fuck Did You Get That Job at Brand Week. But first, we got to get into it with our sponsor. You know, you've heard about fortune cookies, these things you know and love. These guys, they created, as much as you've seen advertisements, 4,000, 5,000 a day, they created ads that people remember and see. And you know how they did it? They took over the fortune cookie as a media platform. They flipped it on its head by creating relationships with over 47,000 restaurants, serving these bad boys, reaching 99% of zip codes in a fun, creative way, giving brands a golden ticket to reach their consumers while they feast. So thank you to Open Fortune for making this happen. Today, we are joined by Michael Shaw. From the dynamic world of sports programming at ESPN in Bristol to the bustling digital landscape of Groupon, Michael Shaw's career is a masterclass in versatility and strategic acumen. At Groupon, he championed the realm of sports partnership, transforming Groupon Live and ascending to the head of sports. But Michael's passion for sports found its first true arena in Miami. First as the SVP and head of brand for the Miami Marlins, he breathed new life into the team's branding narrative. And now, as the VP of Brand Marketing, Michael is at the helm of not just the iconic Miami Dolphins, but also the renowned Hard Rock Stadium. Michael, with the pulse of sports so intricately in your journey, how the fuck did you get that job?
It's a great question. Should I answer?
Drop. I mean, my whole job is I'm going to interrupt you as you try and answer that question. You're going to be answering that question for the next 40 minutes or so.
Okay.
So let's talk to me about like the first brand that you felt like a real like resonance with and like a first emotion and what that was.
Yeah, it won't be. It's probably hard to answer before, but Nike.
Dalu said the same thing.
Yeah, I remember. So I'm a 80s baby. I'm dating myself, but I'm an 80s baby, and so I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. We didn't have any pro teams when I was growing up, but we had WGN, which was regional cable at the time, and so I saw all the Bulls games. And I remember Michael Jordan vividly. I remember more than loving the Bulls, I loved him. I loved his style of play. And what I really embraced is like how Nike created a brand around him based on his skill set, based on his personality. And that's what I bought shoes because I thought I could fly. You know, I did things on the court.
You see Air?
I did see Air.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Very well done. Yeah. I thought it was great.
That's amazing. So talk to me about like that college decision process for you. I like starting there with a lot of folks because it's the first decision that you make as an adult. Like where did you go and why was that the right spot?
So there were several thoughts and decisions to make around college. I grew up, like I said, in Nashville. I was thinking about coming down to University of Miami and play basketball. I love sports. I've always loved sports.
What'd you play growing up?
I played basketball, so I was a point guard. And then I played baseball when I played center field and pitched. And I thought I'd pursue it professionally if I could. Then I played against, in 14 and under AAU Nationals, I played against a team out of Chicago. Had Quentin Richardson. It literally had 5 guys who made it to the NBA. And I was like, okay, this is not my future, right? So I knew
the dream ended.
Yeah. So I decided to stay close to home, one, because it was based on where I went to high school. I could go on an academic scholarship, so I didn't want to have debt when I got out of school, so I was able to go on an academic scholarship. And I wanted to be close to home because I thought there was opportunities for me to really kind of create my own name and create my own kind of identity if I stayed nearby.
There you go. And after college, a lot of our audience is between the ages of about like 18 to 24.
Yeah.
Like getting that first job out of college, you end up in Bristol. I mean, was that like a dream come true?
No question. I went to a career fair and I met the head of HR at ESPN and we hit it off. And he connected me with a few people. And I was at a career fair and I stayed at the Disney booth for probably an hour and a half talking to everybody there. And ultimately they told me there was a job opening on the NBA programming team. And I love sports, like I said, but basketball. And so the things that I knew, statistics, TV, sure. Those are things that they were looking for, but it was stuff that I was doing for free already. And so that's one of those things you learn, like when it's really a passion of yours, it's stuff that you'd be willing to do even if they didn't pay you. And that's probably where your skill set and your gift is. So that's where I found, an opportunity. It was a dream job and a great way to get into sports.
I mean, it's iconic, right? And it's funny, I remember listening to a podcast, it was with Ryan Russillo, and he was talking about, he was like living in Bristol. I've been to Bristol, and I mean, I'll let you describe Bristol, but he said he was like, all I did was get super jacked. Because it was just like all there was the gym. There wasn't much out there other than the campus, which is beautiful. But like, what was that like? Kind of like culture shock, or like Bristol's an interesting spot.
It was, to be honest, it wasn't much different than Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where I went to college. But what I compare it to, for those, like if you've been to like University of Michigan, which is in Ann Arbor, or Gainesville, which is University of Florida, where the college is the town, right? And the college kind of runs the city. Well, ESPN is like that for Bristol. So there are people who live in Bristol who don't work at ESPN, but most of them work at ESPN, right? The cool thing about that is, especially coming out of college, it's really collegiate. You make close friends. Some of my good friends I met in my first job there, and I still have them as friends, all these years later. But it is, I did we have a really competitive basketball league there, winter and summer, a lot of good hooping. A lot of former athletes who go there. So you find yourself doing a lot of working out, like Russillo said, playing a lot of basketball, and probably working late because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. It's funny. I remember taking a tour, and it's a cool place, especially at like 15 years. Well, my cousin is Matthew Berry. I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with him, but he's the man.
Very cool.
He's like a third cousin, but I found out at one Thanksgiving it was super funny. Like I was like attached to my phone, and I remember my cousin comes up to me and she's like, "Oh, that's our cousin," and I was like, "Damn, like I'm obsessed with that dude."
It would have been helpful to tell you before kickoff. So
exactly. I mean, he gets all the calls. But I mean, you're at ESPN, right? And I feel like that's such an awesome place to like work just out of college, like. Yep. And you're just with all these amazing people and just absorbing like a sponge everything. Like, what's one lesson that you took out of working at ESPN in Bristol for those 5-6 years?
One of the important lessons that I learned is that it's really important to connect with your peers. I think often people think vertically, like, oh, I need to impress my boss, which you should. It's great. But the reality is that the people that you start with are people that you're going to grow with, and everybody excels at a different rate and pace. And so now when I look at the people I started with, these are people now that are very senior at tech companies, at investment firms, at other sports teams. And so rather than spending all my time focused on how I'm going to, get to my boss or ask them out, I built a lot of relationships horizontally as well as vertically, but horizontally, because those peers are the ones now that are really shot callers and the ones that I can lean on when, thinking about making tough decisions. So it was really important. One of those lessons is like spend time developing relationship with your peers and not just thinking about how you get to the next level vertically.
And a lot of common themes, there's a lot of pivotal turns in people's careers that we talk about, but like when did you know it was the right time to leave ESPN and the juice, you squeezed everything out of it and it was time to move on? It was
after being there, being really candid, like it was the opportunities to get promoted and to grow. Sometimes you got to step outside of an organization to accelerate, right? Because the reality is that there are so many people and there's only so many roles. And so I saw an opportunity, especially with digital media. Jerry Reinsdorf.
And what year was this?
This would be like 2011, something like 20.
So just birth of it,
Yeah, so like 2011. ESPN3 hadn't really taken off yet, but they were in the beginning stages of it. Then it was ESPN 360.
Yeah.
And so digital media platforms were really becoming a bigger thing by 2011. And so what happened is I saw an opportunity to work for a company called Silver Chalice, which is owned by Jerry Reinsdorf and the Chicago White Sox. And we were building digital platforms for like the ACC network and other cool things. And so there's an opportunity to take the learnings about network, about media from ESPN, about digital media, and take that to a smaller operation, but I had more responsibility, so it was great.
And what you learned from being on, would you consider it a startup?
It was definitely a startup. Yeah, it was definitely a startup. And I think some of the things you learn, especially when you're coming from like a flagship like ESPN, is that resource-wise, there's more opportunity to be creative, right? Decisions get made more quickly. You have more autonomy to work. But also the resources are different, right? So, there's some things you got to do yourself that normally 3 or 4 people might do at ESPN. So it all balances out.
And you joined Groupon when it was like the hottest thing, right?
Groupon was before Amazon, Groupon was Groupon, right? For those that don't know. But yeah, it was cool because Groupon was really the organization that really helped me learn about live entertainment, ticketing, sales, leading sales teams, because they were the company that helped organizations sell last minute tickets. Groupon has an incredible database. And what's interesting about Groupon's database, it is 65% women led, meaning the women, as we all know, they make the purchasing decisions for households, for everybody else. My wife tells me what to do, right? And so she's like, we're buying this. And I'm like, all right, we're buying it. So with Groupon, we have the opportunity to hit a different audience, hit a different demographic, and we're selling last minute tickets, which made it a really unique opportunity.
That's so cool. And I guess at Groupon, right? What made that the right opportunity for you at that time?
It was a combination of, hey, I've learned some sports media opportunities, I've done some digital media, I've done some rights negotiation. Groupon was really about, in my mind, I wasn't the mad scientist genius about it. It was just really God putting me into place. But I thought about trying to add my toolbox, right? So there's learning rights negotiation, there's learning about ticketing. So all those things along the way I've started to pick up. There are a few different ways you can advance in your career, right? Some people, they've been at a company 10, 20, 15 years. I didn't see that as my path. And so what I saw is going around different places, learning different skill sets. And so I thought this was another opportunity, Groupon, to learn, one, how to lead a sales team, one, how to do business development.
Yeah, and talk about leading a sales team and just your leadership style and how you went in being almost like the head coach, and you're like, what are the players going to do?
That's really what it's about. Like a sales team, but ultimately, you got to do the coaching, but they got to actually do the action.
They're snapping the ball and making the plays.
So, if it were today, I would say I'd be like Coach Prime or something, right? Like what I think.
Shout out Colorado.
Shout out Colorado.
We'll see when this podcast airs, but hopefully they're in the Pac-12 or the championship or crushing it.
So but the thing that you learn is that the coaching is really about enabling people so that they can do it themselves, right?
Yeah.
And so what I learned in terms of leading a sales team was that what are the things that I can say and do to really inspire somebody to be more than they thought they could be. And so that's what really I think I would say one of my strengths is that understanding what makes you tick, understanding what motivates you, because it might not motivate the next person, but everybody individually has that thing, and how do I find that and unlock it so that you can achieve incredible things.
Yeah, it's a bar. That's awesome. And I gotta say, so we were talking about it off camera, your decision to move to Miami and you meeting your wife, how'd you meet her, and then how'd you get to Miami?
So that's a longer story. I don't think you have enough airtime to do the how do we meet, but I'll say.
No, I want to give me the quick bullet points. Yeah, let's run it.
Okay, so the quick bullet points are that my brother was graduating from the Kennedy School at Harvard, and she was there to see someone graduate that was not her brother, but it was a guy. And so let's just say that I went to the graduation to see my brother, and I saw this vision of beauty at this graduation, and I had a wonderful, life-changing conversation with her that lasted about an hour. And let's just say we were so engaged in the conversation, she may or may not have seen the person cross the stage that she came to see. Yeah. And so
the rest is history.
Well, I know I should button it up so she doesn't look scandalous.
Okay.
Let me not leave her hanging out there.
We'll close the loop.
Yeah, let me close this, right? So ultimately, she did let me know that she was with someone at the time, and so she basically wouldn't talk to me until she ended that relationship. But we had such a great meeting there, and that a year later, I was at ESPN, and she was at another job, and we reconnected, and then the rest was history. But it was a year later. And then what I would tell you is that the reason that we could get married is because she showed incredible integrity, because I didn't care if she had a boyfriend, if I'm being honest. I was like, hey, but I'm me.
You saw the future, yeah.
I saw the future. But she basically told me hey, we got to do this the right way. And I was irritated about it then, but I respect it now, and I'm so glad that now she's my wife. So I'm not worried about anybody else approaching her. She's gonna push them off.
Good things come if you wait.
That's right.
Patience is a virtue.
That's right. Yeah.
So you end up. She has family down here.
She has family down here, and so we made the decision in 2017 that we wanted to be closer to family, and predominantly her family's here. Family's really important, and some of those things when it comes to success professionally, I find that it's so critical. There's no professional success to me without personal success. right? And so for me, it starts at home with the family. And so if my wife's not happy, if the family's not good, I can't be great at work, right? And so if it meant coming to Florida and starting a new life and being with family, then that's what's important, and that's what we do. And then we plan everything else around that. The jobs come and go, but family is forever.
Yeah.
So that's how we plan that life.
That's awesome. I feel the same exact way. Everything needs to fall into place.
That's
and
right.
like everybody lies about work-life balance. It's just like,
But you know what I say? I say there's no such thing as balance, right? It's prioritization, right?
Yeah.
And then what I would also say is, depending on how you look at prioritization, 50-50 or 70-30 is all balance. Because based on your priorities, there are certain times in life where I was working, I still work a lot, but there are certain times where you just got to grind. And it might look like, 60 hours, 70 hours a week. But then there's other times where maybe it's taking care of your family members or taking care of your kids, where the priority is there. So you got to flip that, and maybe 70% is home with family. Either way, it's about your priorities.
Absolutely. And I mean, it all worked out, right? Because you ended up at the Miami Marlins.
Yeah.
You got to give a shout out to Jeets.
Yeah, what up, DJ?
And he came in and he was the new ownership group,
Yeah.
and that coincided with what you were doing. How'd that come up for you?
So he came on as owner and CEO. And so I was introduced to him by then the team president, Chip Bowers. And so we hit it off immediately. And I bought in immediately to the vision that Derek had, which was, it wasn't to make the Miami Marlins the New York Yankees. It really was to really get deep into the community, to build trust with the fan base, because there was fractured trust around things that had happened before we arrived. But it really was about doing what you said you're going to do, try to be good to people, and then have people, basically embrace the new leadership team. And so it was great to work
How'd that
alongside.
buy-in happen from the fans, and what you do to get that buy-in?
So the buy-in happens just like anything else in a relationship. If I say I'm going to be home at 6 and I'm home at 7, then you don't believe me when I say things, right? So if we say we're going to do a thing, we got to actually do that thing.
Integrity
And
behind
so
it.
the integrity part. So I'll give Derek a lot of credit. The things that he said he was going to do, he did those things. And the things he held us accountable for, like, I did those things. And so when people know that when you say you're going to do something, you deliver, then you start to build trust. And so you believe that, hey, if this person says we're going to get a good team, and this person says we're going to, have a high standard and great experience, then that stuff's going to happen. And so that's how we started to rebuild trust in the community.
And did the rebrand happen when you were there?
Yeah. So it's probably the most exciting thing. So we were
And the brand is so much cooler than it was.
I appreciate it.
It was super outdated, and you guys crushed it in the colorway. So
I didn't pay him to say that.
Yeah. Put me at 20. It's
You know what? So one of the big projects, Nike approached us, and so now it's been happening now I think it's a 5-year program, but City Connect, which is Nike's the on-field provider for MLB, and so they came to us and they said, we want to pick you as one of the first 7 or 8 teams to debut what we call the City Connect uniform, which is how do you find a way to connect to your city and find a way to showcase a new uniform. So that rebrand really was a big part of we felt like, because we're in such a diverse area and the Cuban community is so strong and there's such great Hispanic heritage, that we leaned into that and created a really dope Cuban Sugar Kings concept that really took the city over.
What did you do to get into the community and really understand your fan base?
First and foremost, we had a campaign we called Dímelo, which is, in Spanish, it's called listen, right? And so it talked to me, in Spanish, we were encouraging individuals saying, Dímelo, talk to me, what's up? Tell us what you're seeing. Because there's so many people who had comments and feedback about the way they saw things, about how long it took to pull in and how to park, and how long it took for concessions, or what players
MetLife needs to work on all that.
Right? And so really the campaign was really about, hey, talk to me, tell me what you're seeing. So we tried to listen first and foremost, listen to where the challenges and pain points were. And then, like I said, the integrity part is actually responding to the things we hear and trying to correct those things. So that was a big part of the initial, was a lot of listening sessions and hearing where the challenges were.
So you end up there for a little over 4 years, right? And you're the head of brand. I brought this question up to a couple guests today. My 5-year-old cousin, Adrian, he told me how to turn a whoops into a wahoo.
Did you say 5-year-old?
Yeah, 5-year-old. It just turned 6. We were just at the birthday,
Cool.
so fact check. But
Happy birthday.
But turning a whoops into a wahoo, turning a failure into something that, was actually a beautiful success. What's something over your 4 years at the Marlins that, identified with that.
Yeah, I think so. There are, in that scenario and the way you're saying it, there are no failures, right? There's only learning experiences, and I think for me personally, there are situations where, you know, we have misunderstandings. Whether the fan base thinks, you know, we should do one thing or another.
Sure.
One thing that I think about often is how to really take feedback. You know, by nature, you know, people can be defensive. I have been really, really defensive, especially early in my career. It's hard to hear feedback. And what I would tell you is that one of those, was it whoops to wahoo?
Yeah.
Is like learning and the ability to like let someone tell you about their experience and you not take it personally and see it as an opportunity to become a much, much better listener. Like, we can be more effective. I find sometimes even if you're not really saying anything, that doesn't mean you're actually listening. Somebody's just talking to you, but you're not listening. And so one of those whoops is like allowing myself to open up, right? To allow people to give feedback about whatever their experience is, or
and
whatever
not close off and
whatever
shut down,
they think the brand is, or all those things. You can agree or not, but like to give somebody that platform to listen and to open myself up. And those one of those things that like being less defensive is an area that I feel like I've grown.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And I want to talk about you taking over the change to the Dolphins. Like, you move from MLB to NFL right across town. Like, why the change, and what made the Dolphins the right place?
Shout out to our vice chairman and CEO, Tom Garfinkel. I think he's one of the great leaders in sports and entertainment. I really do. And so the way that he, with culture, the way that he leads the operation, the way that we believe in treating people, the way that we believe in creating a first-class experience, no matter whether it's football or Formula One sports or tennis, all of those are very attractive points in terms of joining the organization. I decided that the next place that I worked, I wanted to be about culture, I wanted to be about legacy, and not just about like compensation.
And what was Tom's vision?
Well, he has a lot of visions, but his latest vision, I would say, was about taking what was an underutilized parking lot outside Hard Rock Stadium and turn it into one of the greatest events around the world, which is the Crypto.com Formula One Miami Grand Prix.
Yeah, that's unreal. What was that experience like? I've never been to an F1 race, but I've just heard.
You got to come.
Yeah.
It is. We should do a podcast from the race. Actually,
like, I mean, that'd be perfect.
It is. What I would tell you is that the Miami Grand Prix is the greatest collection of celebrity, world industry movers, shakers. You could take the Grammys. You could take, like, you could put anything up against it.
How do you think it even became that? Because we were talking about that earlier. Just like F1 just blew up, and obviously it had Drive to Survive and stuff. But like, how do you view that brand?
So I think it's a combination of a few things. So I think Formula One in itself, already in Europe and everywhere else around the world,
was a big deal.
Was already a huge deal, right? And then you take the Drive to Survive, the
storytelling
relevancy,
of it, yeah.
That's a piece, and then you drop it in Miami, Florida, right? Where since the pandemic, it's to me become one of the top global destinations around the world, because of folks from New York that have, decided to either live full time or at least live half of the year. People from Silicon Valley, people from Europe, LATAM. So the scene in Miami has changed over the last 3 to 4 years significantly. And so celebrities, entrepreneurs, they make their homes here. So now when you talk about having a race, which is the CNBC, the who's who, you have a lot of people. And so I think it's just a perfect storm of, culture and Formula One all meeting up at one time, and also the foresight of our CEO to look and say, we're going to create something that's different. So it's not just about a race. We're going to create an experience that people have to leave and come from around the globe to see, that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful to watch on TV, but I can imagine just seeing it in person
Unreal.
Is nuts. We talked a lot with the Marlins about getting like fan buy-in, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about player buy-in with the Dolphins. Like, that's a big part of it, right? It's the product on the field. Like, what do you do with the players to make sure that they're feeling like your message and feeling like they're part of the team and the brand behind it?
I love the question. It's really important. We work really closely with our PR and comms team because they control the keys to access to players, right? And as the creative and marketing lead, it's really important to work closely with them because they're actually in the locker room. They understand what's happening, what players doing this, how everybody...
Yeah, they're the lifeblood.
Right?
Yeah.
The lifeblood, but what's important is like, it's not just about the games. It's about like the locker room demeanor. It's about what's going on at home, what's going on the field, on the practice field. And so with the players, we march to the rhythm of our coach. So Coach McDaniel, he gives the best interviews in the league, right? But Coach Mike is really about team first. And so if you look at our creative, we certainly have superstars. We got Tua, we got Tyreek, we got Waddle, we got the defensive play, right? So we have individual stars, but everything is about team first, right? And so because it's about team first, when you think about the creative, you're never going to see in our social, like, we're only highlighting one player all the time. Like, it's just not the way. Even when one player's balling out, we're going to certainly feature that player because we should. Like, that's what the fans will want to see. But we're also really going to make sure that the long snapper or the linebacker that had the block punt, or like, we're going to find ways to make sure that we're trying to shine the light on the full team, because we think ultimately is everybody feels like they're getting a little piece of recognition, a little piece of shine. As a marketing team, we feel like that helps bring the team together. Everybody wants to see their name in lights from time to time. And so what we try to do is everybody, it's disingenuous to say that everybody gets equal shine, because they don't, right? But to make sure that we're highlighting the team and the team performance along with individual greatness, that's the goal.
Yeah, I got to give you guys a pat on the back too, because it always rubs me the wrong way when teams are like, it's just happy birthday graphics and score graphics. And it's like, come on guys, we can do better than that.
We love our birthday graphics, but there's so much more we can do. And the fan wants to know more, right? Like, what we're trying to do is give them a window into what life is like when you're off the field, because you're going to see all of the highlights, you'll see all of the behind the scenes, all of the mic'd up, like, everyone loves that. But also it's like, what sneakers are you wearing? Like, what are you into in the community? Like, what's the game day drip look like? You know, like, so there's so many other opportunities to get to know the guys.
Absolutely, and I mean, we just came off the big win last week. It was week 1. It is week 2 coming up now that we're recording this when it airs.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to make a prediction on the Dolphins' final record after this. But what are you most stoked about this season?
I think, the Dolphins, if you think about as an organization, so last year we just celebrated 50 years of the perfect team, right? Meaning, like, the only undefeated team in the history, 1972 Dolphins. We celebrated 50 years of that. And while that's incredible and we're all about celebrating the past, we got to be forward-looking, like innovative, forward-looking, fast-thinking. And I think what I'm most excited about, I think everybody, no matter how much of a fan you are, everybody feels like they have a chance going into week 1. But then things change and people are like, well, I don't know. Our team doesn't look good anymore. And what I can honestly tell you is that this is one of those seasons where in my deepest heart of hearts, I'm excited because I know we have a chance. Like, we have the talent, we have the teamwork, we have the leadership, we have the coaching, we have the resources to be really special. And so it's really exciting going into every game thinking like we can win and we should win. And we have a shot to win. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Absolutely. One last question before we enter our lightning round.
Yeah.
And it's just like, if you're talking to your 21-year-old self, what's the advice you're giving to him?
21-year-old self.
Dear Michael.
Dear Michael, I'm writing today to tell you. Now, you know what I would tell my 21-year-old self is that there's never, ever, like a wrong time to do the right thing. It pays off to treat people well. It pays off to do the right thing even when it's hard. When I was younger, when it comes to integrity, sometimes I try to slide by and do the easy thing, and it will catch up with you, and it doesn't necessarily pay off. And so I know there will be some people watching this who are kind of still in that early stage of like graduating from college and going out. And what I really truly believe in my heart of hearts is like it always pays off to have integrity. It always pays off to try to do the right thing. And whether you believe in karma or spiritual or whatever that is, like, I don't know anybody who tries to live and do the right thing who's not thriving. And thriving can be a lot of things. It can be financially, it can be spiritually, it can be health. But to really thrive, what I would tell my 21-year-old self is like, always have the courage to do the right thing, have integrity, and watch life be great.
I love ending it there, integrity being the main word behind everything that you just said. So let's wrap up into the quick question round.
Let's do it.
We got our lightning round brought to you by Open Fortune. I want you to forget everything that you know about the fortune cookie, because we created a company at Open Fortune where you can put ads that people actually remember. This isn't direct mail, this isn't billboards, this is ads that people see, and one of the most creative ad canvases out there. So shout out to Open Fortune for making this possible and creating the distribution and just getting us on this yacht. Also, last, I got to give a shout out to Kevin for being behind the camera on all of these. And
Kevin?
what's the Instagram? Plug it.
It's KFitz, K-F-I-T-Z.
All right, sweet. Person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with, dead or alive.
Jay-Z.
Favorite city in the world.
Miami.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
It's not. It's not. It's not
I'm
okay.
losing this bet so badly.
Not okay.
Favorite romantic comedy.
I'm gonna go Brown Sugar. That's got, you guys probably don't know what that is, but it's got Common the rapper, I believe, and it's got, go check out, just YouTube it, Brown Sugar.
You just see Silo with Common?
I haven't seen it, but I'm familiar with it.
It's mad good.
Is it good?
And he's unreal in it. Yeah, Apple TV.
Actually, let me take it back. Loving Basketball. Y'all heard that? Loving
Yeah.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Loving Basketball.
Best spot to eat in Miami.
Ooh. I mean, when we moved, I know this is lightning round, so I'm talking too much, but when we moved in 2017 in New York, basically every top chef, it seems like, has some type of restaurant here now. Like, there's so many good places. One of my favorite places, I mean, pick Carbone, Prime 112. Like, it's a ton. Like, there's so many good ones.
Favorite ESPN alum.
Rest in peace, Stuart Scott.
In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
40 years? In 40 years, people will be nostalgic for something that was 40 years old. So it will probably be, people will be nostalgic for a time when you could only watch one thing on TV.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Chaos.
Chaos, period. What's the final record of the Miami Dolphins this year?
I won't give you the record, but I will tell you that we should win the division.
There you go.
Hopefully division champs. Let's just say that.
Worst advice you've ever been given?
Worst advice. Worst advice I've been given is, I believe, I would say, sometimes people say follow your heart. This might sound controversial, but that's not great advice, to only follow your heart. You have to, you got to take head. Your heart sometimes can mislead you to what you think, and it's not a great indicator about your heart. So wisdom is not based on your heart. So I believe in wisdom, and I wouldn't just follow my heart.
There you go. I love that. Be rational. If you could have 10 million fortune cookies and you had one fortune to put in all of them, what would you say?
So give it to me again.
You have 10 million fortune cookies. You're flooding Miami with them. What's the fortune?
What's the fortune?
Yeah.
Oh, the fortune is you will be a big help and help make somebody's life great.
And in 10 years, where can we catch you?
Hopefully with a family full of happy, loving children and, doing my thing. Who knows the brand, the job, but I think I'm going to be living authentically and living great.
There we go. Sweet. Michael, thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.